for the Gathering podcast.
When I started in the industry, CEOs talked about sales, margin, profit. Today, those same CEOs are talking about people, culture, leadership, engagement. Why is that? Because the companies that actually are able to succeed have the people culture formula right. Your people and culture, your superpower, relationship building, trust building. What's a number one skill in starting up a business as an entrepreneur? We're the underdogs of high potential entrepreneurial DNA.
Listen to the people. Listen to the people. People and culture. Oh yeah. It's time for the Gathering podcast. It's time for the Gathering podcast.
It's a pleasure to have you in the studio here with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to
having me.
StartWell. Our audience is primarily comprised for this podcast of, HR professionals, people in culture folks, but also leaders growing teams that are considering what the kind of people story looks like for their growth.
Yeah.
So paint the picture of kind of your history of your career in that world.
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting. I actually graduated with a business degree, and I was one of the lucky ones. I knew I wanted to pursue HR. So I specialized last 2 years in my Bachelor of Commerce. I actually took all these specialty HR courses, I think, which kind of served me well. So I kind of knew, okay, this is what I want to do. The funny story is I graduated, landed in Newmarket.
Ontario.
In Ontario.
Okay.
And the HR job that I got was at a company called FM Foods. They produce Mars chocolate bars.
Ah.
Yeah. So I was responsible for recruiting the 24/7 production line workforce. That was it was like...
Where did you get these people from
Don't
to
know.
work the Mars bar line?
Not LinkedIn.
Definitely not LinkedIn. And it was a really, really tough role. And I remember at that point, I'm like, crap, I picked the wrong career. This is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then during the sort of the late 90s boom, you may recall sort of tech and everyone's Y2K, everyone was prepping. I got into recruitment, tech recruitment, and that was kind of my entry and pivot into tech. And then I took sort of the HR background.
What was the beginning of that though? Like, what were the first couple like tech companies? Are there any
the
anecdotes?
tech, yeah. Well, Sigma Systems, I still remember Sigma Systems. It's an iconic Canadian telecom OSS BSS platform, deep in telecom. They've since been acquired 3 times.
Wow.
Big success story. Andy Jasuja, the CEO. And so I was employee number 52, first HR presence. And I spent 8 years scaling, building M&A. There was M&A activity. There was downsizing. There were rifts. So went through the entire cycle. And
So for
that's
how long were you there?
8 years.
That's quite the adventure.
Employee 50, like how many people were there?
I'd say,
heights,
because we went through a merger and then we got acquired, so definitely went through a few cycles. We would have been at the peak around 500.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of
Yeah.
experience. Like a lot of things because of the mergers
Exactly.
and the diversity of experience you get in that is...
Yeah.
That's,
And 3 CEOs too. in
Yeah.
that
3
time.
CEOs.
3 CEOs.
Anyone placed by the board? Was there like that whole backup board step-in situation? No?
No, it was simply in order to strategically grow, we need a certain skill set and
Cool.
a CEO and their Rolodex. So we went to market and hired. Yeah. So it was good.
Man.
It was a good transition.
And then after that?
And then after that, I had 2 kids. And
Yay!
yeah, that was fun. And then so I went into kind of more sort of fractional, little bit of flexibility, part-time, still in tech. So Terrago Networks, Mobilicity. I was actually the head of HR for Yahoo Canada. Does anyone remember Yahoo back in the day?
Yahoo!
Yeah, exactly.
oh boy.
Fun fact.
I
got
miss Yahoo, man.
I know. Fun fact. I don't know if you remember, they had a Mini Cooper branded Yahoo, and when it actually had a horn. It would say
say
Yahoo.
Yahoo?
So we used to travel all around the city, and I got to run.
Oh,
I got it
man.
for the weekend, here and there. So that was fun. That was fantastic.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, back in the heyday, they were. This is when they were actually competing with the Googles and the Microsofts.
The early tech stuff was so exciting, and like to be involved in a tech company 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
was a different beast than, kind of this amorphous software SaaS company world
Yeah.
that startups are immersed in today, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Did you see because I feel like the beanbag ping pong table
Yeah.
beer Fridays
Yeah.
thing
Oh, yeah.
you saw it, but it wasn't there from the very get-go, was it?
No, it became this thing from the Valley that we kept reading about. And
I want it too.
we're Canadians.
Yeah.
They're doing something cool south of the border. We want to do the same.
Sure.
Big Brother has a toy. We want to play with
Yeah,
it too.
exactly. So that was the big thing. But there's so much chatter around that, right? It's just,
Oh, no.
it's like, you got to get back to the values and the roots of what you're really building as a culture. The ping pong and the free food. Free food was really a big thing,
Right.
my entire tech career. That's the one thing that has stood the test of time.
Yeah.
Free food.
Free food.
Having fun at work maybe is the note.
Sure. Having fun. And I think regardless of all the issues, like I said, the food, the potluck, bringing people together, and not feeling the pressure to be at your workstation,
Yeah.
plugging away. I have permission.
Exactly.
I have permission to chill, which you generally don't have outside of those type of events.
Very true.
Yeah,
Very
outside
true.
of those events. So
Isn't that weird how permissiveness is such a big factor of motivation in the workplace?
Well, there is a tech culture that I didn't approve of, which became rampant. I'm going to say like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where these giant tech companies, and I won't name them, but we all know them, they would literally breakfast,
Hooli.
lunch, dinner, snacks,
Yeah.
and they did it because they want to keep you there.
It's gone from that utopia of you could pick up back in the Valley, right? Or wherever their office was in California, you could pick up a bicycle. They had bicycles.
Yeah. On
And
campus.
all this kind of
yeah.
great, come hang out.
Yeah.
And the come hang out became, we'll do everything to keep you here all the time.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
And then
That's
it became, what does productivity mean anyway?
But that was a big thing and not okay, in my
Yeah.
opinion. But it was masked because everybody thought, I get to go home and brag about the fact that I get 3-4 meals. You probably save a shitload of money.
It's weird though, because also in first job, when people are in their first or second jobs, these sorts of things feel like they're more valuable, right?
Yeah.
Agreed.
As soon as you have kids, you're like, oh man,
Yeah.
whatever. You
Yeah.
know, I got to make 10 lunches tomorrow anyway. You know, I'll take mine.
Life experience changes your lens
Yeah.
on
Yep.
this stuff. Yeah.
And so at that time, everything was also new. And I think these tech companies were really they had their employees were connected with the mission statement.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to believe in change, and society was changing technologically quite fast in the 90s and in the early 2000s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before the robotic apocalypse started last year or whatever. Okay, so then
We haven't talked about that one yet.
Yeah.
that's going to come up.
Yeah, that
I'm excited.
digression's coming.
Okay, so then I guess fast forward a few
fast
years?
forward. So the last 3 years. Then reported. I talk about this when I have interviews or different conversations. Is that I've actually reported into 6 CEOs across my career, which is
Wow.
a badge of honor for me because I got to get the best of these 6 CEOs. And now that I'm an entrepreneur, which I'll talk more about,
Yeah.
I kind of have a really interesting sort of vantage point in terms of who I want to be as a leader and what I think it takes to be a good leader. And I won't say good, I actually say great leader because there's a difference.
Yeah, it's super interesting because a lot of entrepreneurs end up figuring it out, by happenstance, and then having a lot of shall we say, mixture of mixed emotions about the role as they grow their teams and then having to deal with people. And it's either this Asperger's in tech, get out of my face, I just want to
Totally.
focus on problems, or it's this yay, I have all these people to hang out with. And then it's wait, but you're not driving value out of them being there because you're just hanging out with them.
And you can't be friends.
You can't be friends.
You can't be friends.
You can be friendly.
Yeah.
And that goes with clients and other stakeholders as well.
Yes.
And that's a whole thing,
Yeah, that
Have you
is.
found this? It's with people. It's a people thing in general,
Yeah.
right?
I think it's a gray line because you want to be authentic and who you are outside of work. You want to bring that self into work.
Yeah.
But when you're a leader, you do have to just be careful not to cross that line of you have a job to do, and you're going to have difficult conversations with some of the people that you're talking to.
Do you also
And hang out.
feel? I hate bringing, because people keep telling me this. I don't know. We talk often, and tell me if this is something that's unique to my brain. But I feel like I always have to qualify everything that I say that's social critique with our context, which is here in Toronto and in Canada. Also, our
Yeah.
audience is global; it's not
Yeah.
just local
Yeah,
for the
sure.
show.
Yeah.
But I feel like in North America specifically, office work in North America is really weird. In other parts of the world, it's part of a more integrated approach to life,
Yeah.
right?
It's
Ur-
an issue.
It's an issue. And
Yeah.
urban topography, like maybe in Europe, you're going to the palazzo and you're having a glass of wine with your lunch, and then you come back and no one's like, Giuseppe, or whatever your name is. Like, where were you? Or if you're in India, you're getting your dhaba food
Yeah.
or your tiffin
Yeah.
from your house
Yeah.
sent to your office, and you're eating it. But now you got curry on your hands. You're not gonna be then typing an email while you're eating your, rashmi kebabs and your like greasy whatever. So it's very interesting how like here we've compartmentalized a lot of our lives in North America, and
Yeah.
that
Work to
life.
live versus live to work.
Mm.
And because of my family, we have a family history of a lot of immunodeficiency diseases, and so a little bit of research on that. And if you look at allergies,
Yeah.
anaphylactic allergies, you look
Interesting.
at things like colitis, autoimmune diseases, they're virtually unheard of in those parts of the world.
Yeah.
Virtually unheard of. Nobody
See?
carries an EpiPen in India. It's never heard of.
Because
I think the
stress of-
stressors associated with our lifestyle are creating this sort of snowballed. It's only going to get worse. Look at mental health right now. It's a epidemic everywhere you go.
feels like something's cooking
Yeah.
over the last few years in terms of the amount of mental health apps
Mm-hmm.
that
It's
are
a hot
coming out.
sector. And also in health,
It is a hot
it's a
sector. I
sector
hate
that
to
people
say.
can invest in as well,
Yeah,
because you can't invest
exactly.
in real medicine, because real medicine in Canada is all like subsidized through
Regulated
building
and-
codes.
Yeah.
Well, like doctors can't do anything other than like do 1950s medicine in Canada and bill for it to the government. If they want to do anything cool, like lifestyle stuff that actually changes like diet and how people live, they can't get paid for it.
So they're not going to do it then.
And there's no innovation in the sector because of this. And then we've got also monopolistic things like TELUS owns all the like software that runs all the hospitals.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have like on-prem servers, and so they can't go to cloud, and you can't like change the tech to make it better, faster.
Back to your theory, monopoly
100%.
sort of culture. Wherever there's an wherever you see stifled innovation, chances are
There's a monopoly.
there's a monopoly.
And the moat becomes so pervasive that everyone's drowning in it, and we don't even know.
You don't even realize it.
Which
Yeah.
opens up room for disruption to a degree, no?
Yeah.
I think so, but you know what? To be a disruptor in this climate requires a real like ballsy attitude.
Yeah, that's a word I thought of
Resilience,
too.
yeah.
Right?
That's the word thinking, yeah.
So what was the impetus that led you to becoming an entrepreneur?
Oh boy, that's gonna be how long is this podcast?
I'll turn the clock off.
Yeah, so I think I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and in my mind I was like, I'm gonna do a cool HR tech.
Yeah.
And that was kind of always brewing at the back of my mind. And then I realized it's such a crowded space, right? If there's another HR tech software that gets pitched to me, like literally every week.
Yeah.
So I'm a foodie at heart. Sachili is my CPG brand that I started about 4 years ago. Sachili,
Okay.
I've got some jars for you guys. I
Nice.
didn't want to mess up your beautiful display here.
No, we
But,
should bring them on the table.
Yeah, that's okay. So started Sachili, and I was still working at the last e-commerce company I was at, stickeryou.com.
Oh, Sticker You.
Yeah, I was VP HR and then also sales. I took on sales right towards the end. And I had this dilemma of, shit, we're in 200 stores. I got to manage this. I can't do this on a part-time basis.
Yeah. It was really fun getting there, but now I need to pay attention to this. It's a real business.
It's a real business, but could it have legs?
Yeah.
And that's what I made the tough decision. I remember walking into my CEO and saying, listen, tough call, but here's what I don't want to kick myself for not making this call right now.
Right.
You know, I can always come back to HR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's the decision I made. And that was a really, really tough road. CPG, if you don't know anybody in CPG, 90% failure rate.
Yeah.
I got firsthand experience.
You're
as to
talking
why.
locally 90% failure rate, right? In
No,
Canada.
nationally. No, in U.S. 90%.
In the US.
So if you go to a grocery store, you see, oh, this is a really cool new product, new brand, not a Frito-Lay, not the big players. There's a 90% chance that in 2 years, that's not going to be on the shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
That's
makes
it.
sense. It's the moat. The moat's pervasive in a weird way.
Yeah. Well, I can so we had moderate success, but not enough success to invest and scale in a meaningful way. There was too much risk.
So what were the initial products that you had in market?
So we created a delicious chili crunch condiment.
Okay.
Our
Yes, I remember this.
Sachili. So the key differentiation with our product is we're cuisine agnostic. A lot of the chili products are Asian influence, Indian, Thai. We're
Yeah.
cuisine agnostic, and we're not drenched in oil. So we're actually a very
Chili oil without oil?
Yeah.
Arre wah.
You speak Hindi?
No, only a little bit. I used to have a Bollywood company.
Okay.
Anyway, that's
We
another
need a
that's
podcast
another
on
podcast.
that. Have you done a podcast on
He
that?
doesn't know. We
I need to do a podcast.
yeah.
I'll host.
Okay.
I'll host.
Let's do
and
it.
you can be the guest. We'll
Yeah.
reverse roles.
I should do a podcast where like every episode is a different venture that I've started. It could be 20 episodes easy.
We could, by nature of just saving time,
Sure.
we could actually just stitch together all the micro stories that you share
Yeah.
in each.
Episode.
Because
Yeah,
there was
there's
that
always
one
a story.
time you got, I forget what country, you drove up to the president's house to get your.
Uganda.
That's the one. Yeah. See, like.
Did I say that on the podcast?
Yeah. There's we have a
Oh,
little
when I
episode
almost
there.
got shot once.
Yeah.
So this is, I don't want to steer too far away. No, but I was born in Uganda,
You were born in
in
Uganda?
Entebbe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Were you there during the Idi Amin
No.
regime?
So my
Okay.
parents left prompted by that
Yeah,
because my
same.
mom's sister was in Uganda and they got kicked out
Yeah.
and they had to leave all their industry behind.
Yeah.
Um,
Sad. So
sad,
sad.
so sad. And then they came to Kenya and everyone in Kenya was worried that it would happen there too, right?
Yeah.
And so my parents left very young, but they left like, when they're young adults
Mm.
in 73, 74. No,
Mhm.
was it earlier? 72, 73, yeah.
Mhm.
So right when that happened
Mhm.
to come to Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
And that
cool.
story's in one of the podcasts too, I think.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, man, East Africa. And then I
Yeah.
lived there, 92, we moved back.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that's why I was one of the first internet resellers in East Africa because I was a teenager and I was craving connection with North America and my friends and my family that was back here.
Yeah.
And so when the internet came, before the internet, I used to fax my cousins all the time. And it would cost so much money. We'd
Yeah,
fax these like
it's- yeah,
jokes.
It's crazy.
We just like
Fax
stupid
jokes.
things. Yeah, like draw a bum and like fax it to your cousin, And then my mom was like, waving, a wooden spoon at me from the kitchen. That's costing me $5.
Oh my gosh.
And then the internet came and I was like, this is going to change the world. And
Yeah.
I became like the guy, the kid with the
You
bag
were the
and modem
ambassador of pioneering
of
that
the internet.
of the internet for that community or that region.
I taught everyone who got online in like, what was that? 1996 to maybe 1999. I
Mhm.
taught like most companies and people in Nairobi what the internet was.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
there's another little snippet for
That's
your
it, yeah.
for your collage.
but let's bring it back. But even those early experiences for me with entrepreneurialism as a
Yeah.
teenager were about, it was really about kind of the business came second, like the finances and like creating a business out of
Mhm.
just solution provision
Mm-hmm.
was second. So you create this product.
Yeah, created a product.
Was this a recipe that's like family recipe?
No, it's a recipe I created. I'm a fusion cook.
Okay.
I did a lot of fusion in my kitchen, created it. A lot of food founders have a similar story. Made it, friends and family would be
Yeah.
like, hey, could you
Make
put that in a
it for
jar
me,
for
yeah.
me?
Bring it
Yeah,
over.
Can you bring it over? Then we went to the farmer's market, and then Sobeys picked us up, and the rest is history. So yeah, it was the product Sachili has my name in it. So I take a lot of pride. And I remember the first time I saw it on Loblaws shelf. We were in the local program, and I remember taking a picture of it, and it was the Loblaws that I grew up in, that I frequented as a kid. And so that
Wow.
was a little bit nostalgic for me
Yeah.
to kind of say, oh yeah, I used to shop here. Um,
That's cool.
so that kind of took me through the last 2 years, but this failure rate, my business mindset and my tech sort of roots kind of said there's got to be a better way. And so in March, I found a tech co-founder, started a company that's going to support Sachili called Go CPG.ai.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah.
This is brilliant. I
So
didn't
I'm
even
solving,
know about this.
yeah. So I'm solving a problem that I experienced firsthand
Yeah.
as a CPG founder, and I'm creating a solution for all my peers out there so that we can improve this failure rate.
Okay, so
That's killing us.
let's walk through what Go CPG is.
Go
What
CPG.
do you do for people?
So we are still in the process. We're very early stage, but
Okay.
the problem we're solving is we believe the high failure rate is rooted in the lack of market intelligence and best practices. So if I'm a CPG founder, I experience this. You're just blindly following the blind,
Yeah.
the blind leading the blind.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no playbook.
I should go to there's no playbook. Oh yeah, I should go to this trade show and spend $20,000. Well, it's probably not the best use of my money at
Right.
this stage. Pricing strategy. Can I afford a broker? Can I afford a distributor? So really what we're doing is we're giving access to affordable data that's actionable and that's going to make better decisions for them across the journey. And so by the time you get to year 2, what happens? You've wasted, like in the US, I can give you, it's a startling stat, $26 billion in lost investment every year from CPG founders.
Wow.
Failed investments. So you run out of money and you close shop. And that's the playbook because it's trial and error. Those
Right.
2 years have been all rooted in trial and error. So we're trying to take away the uncertainty and bring more certainty to those decisions
Is
and
a-
investments.
Is a lot of this because the assumption, okay, we're talking about foods,
Yeah,
right?
CPG, consumer, food and beverage.
And CPG stands for consumer packaged goods.
You got it. Yeah.
So is this because the assumption for most people founding these products is that, especially if they're condiments or if they're snack foods, that they're scale businesses. They're starting scale businesses and they need that scale
Yeah,
to be profitable.
correct. You got it.
And it's interesting because I think the popular kind of mindset, has not many examples of access to market for this kind of a thing. Like, what do we have in Canada for the most people? I bet you everyone will say Dragon's Den. Oh, go to Dragon's Den. Or your family will tell you. Or your friends will tell you.
Venture Park Labs, again, is an Arlene initiative, but there's nothing, it's fragmented. Everybody's claiming to support, because I've been there. Everyone's claiming that, oh, we'll help you with this, we'll help you with that, but there's no holistic accountability in terms of we're going to mentor and guide you.
Did you
through this
have,
journey.
so you left Sticker U.
Yeah.
You're full on with
Yeah,
Sachili.
Sachili. Yeah.
What was the first oh shit moment? Was there a particular moment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The oh shit moment was so there's many actually. I can only pick one.
Pick as many as you
Oh,
want.
there's a few oh shit moments. I'd say the biggest oh shit moment was a meeting that I had with a buyer where they had about 40 stores. So buyer, we've been engaging for a long time. Yeah, we're interested. Everything's great, Sachi, yada, yada, yada. And so we're preparing the product. We're getting ready. We're stocking up. And that PO took 9 months to land in my inbox. And
That's
they
the
didn't set that
worst.
expectation with me. They didn't, despite asking. And so I think that inability to control revenue momentum
Yep.
and forecasting,
Yep.
that's going to screw your business up.
Oh my God.
If you don't know, if I forecast, I just came out of a meeting and I'm like, yeah, we got 25K PO coming. It doesn't come 9 months later. I got to do a lot of work to make up for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so imagine that multiplied by 5, 10, 15.
Every order that comes in.
Well, every
they're leaning
order,
on you.
every interaction, even
Yeah.
a distributor. When we got into Unify, Unify is their distributor. From the time we got the welcome, we're so excited to distribute your products, to the time I got the paperwork, 100 days.
And so, where in this did you kind of start looking for some capital to float you?
I'm self-funded. So I was 100% self-funded. I started a business in my 50s. I shouldn't be saying that on camera. But that's the benefit of starting a business later, because I actually had a bit of a
Savings.
that I could
So
have.
you burned your savings for this.
Yeah, burned our saving. We had moderate success, but not
you
in
raise
the
any
way.
debt?
What's that?
Did you go to the bank?
No.
Wow.
All self-funded, 100% self-funded.
Wow.
100% self-funded, but slow and steady. We're not
Sure.
in 2,000 stores for that reason.
Right.
And so when I realized that this is a uphill battle, and I don't think there's going to be a better way. I'm a pretty smart, business savvy person. If I can't crack this nut,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. So there's got to be a better way. So I went back to tech. I went to my tech friends, and now I'm starting to work on that solution.
Okay, so I love this for so many things, right? Like, one, the idea that you're not going to be overextending yourself and assuming that from the beginning
Yeah.
by not taking on debt,
Yeah.
not developing a cap table,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
And then being subservient to either a bank or an investor's need for returns
Yeah.
and pace of that,
Yeah.
to then also controlling your, let's say, access to market restrictively to manage your own expectations on growth. Very interesting. And then also thinking holistically, because this is the thing that most entrepreneurs don't do, right? Is think holistically about their product, about their industry, about the problems that they're facing. But this also is framed by your career before this in people and cultures to say, like, well, how does it affect other people, and how can I solve their problems?
I'm a community builder. You hit the nail on the head. I'm doing this. Somebody said to me, well, Sachi, why are you go build another tech? Why are you building a tech for CPG? And it's like, because it's in my DNA. I want to, if I'm going to put energy into something, I want a community to benefit. It's like people, culture, same thing.
Yeah.
Any effort that, any efforts that we put in, it was for the betterment of the people.
Of course.
Ultimately, that was my job, frankly. If I wasn't doing that, and then I'm not doing my job.
Quick pause, because I want to hear about Go CPG. But I think by nature of the economy that we're in and the tools that are now available to everyone to a certain extent, Shopify's out there, and then you see people starting
This episode is sponsored. No, it's not sponsored by Shopify. Sorry.
It's sponsored by Google's Dijon mustard buffet.
Dijon mustard is going to spike now. Sales are going to spike, and it's going to be too
my
expensive.
favorite mustard, like the grainy stuff. Anyways,
Yeah, Dijon. It's fantastic, of course.
so you have access to all these tools now as an individual. The prices of everything are skyrocketing.
Yeah.
So more and more people are going down the path that you took.
Yeah.
But you just took this path before it was cool or necessary.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, or seemingly necessary. So I guess, like, for all the people out there that are like, oh, I gotta start selling, green pencils on Instagram now, or whatever it might be. Like, you've zoomed out, you're doing the whole Inception thing.
Yeah.
But, like, what's your advice to those people?
Yeah. It's actually really interesting, because as I'm building out the tech platform right now, my advice is no different than what we keep hearing in tech, which is slow down. Everybody, entrepreneur, we get excited. Oh, I want to take this to the finish line right away. You have to invest the time to understand market fit. Is there a need for your product? Because if there is not a need, you're going to spend a shitload of money in sales and marketing and to generate that demand. And that's probably could be what kills you. So if you need to iterate, you iterate. If that green pencil should be purple or should be a pen,
Right.
go figure that out before you build. Don't be in a rush.
Yeah.
Don't be in a rush to build. Slow down.
I think it's the biggest input in a business that people don't think of.
Nobody thinks about it.
Because it doesn't fit in the balance sheet.
Yeah.
In fact, if anything, the balance sheet is at odds with this input, which is time, right? Like, I had this conversation with someone yesterday, and I was talking about all the things that I'm frustrated with, in our business, saying we're selling, gold for the price of copper, not even, for the price of paper. I don't know. we've got a great product. Everyone loves it. Our clients, for the most part, are very, very happy with everything that StartWell does. But I can't accelerate my
Yeah.
brand awareness because of market limitations right now and various other things, no matter how I want to.
Yeah.
And this keeps coming up on the StartWell podcast, where I'm interviewing marketing leaders and people in the marketing industry and agencies and stuff. And we're finding that, all the promises of programmatic advertising for the last decade plus have been proven to not work and be ridiculously expensive, prohibitively expensive for most product classes.
Yeah.
If you're not selling sneakers,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to sell what you're selling through ads.
Yeah.
And,
Your ad spend, like I know because I had to learn marketing for Sachili.
Yeah.
If I spent $10 on Instagram and got X results, for me to get those same results today, so call it a year later, I have to spend 30 to 40. It's scary.
It's scary. And a lot of this is like, again, macroeconomic impact of, where we're at with monopolies, but massively funded competitors in every industry segment will outburn you on customer acquisition, right? Because they don't need to prove necessarily profitability on each customer that they acquire.
Exactly.
They can burn and lose because they're selling a story to whoever they got the financing from on the future.
Exactly.
Which SMBs can't play. You know, we don't have access to capital to be able to lever capital as an asset. And that's an interesting thing. That means that we have less time to prove the concept. And fundamentally also, I mean, in most of these like publicly funded companies or massively private equity backed or venture funded companies, like it's interesting. We see this a lot, of course, with our customer base. We have all sorts of different customers here. And if I look at the motivations of bootstrap companies versus funded but profitable companies versus funded but not profitable companies, and I'm talking about not just we just got started yesterday, but like, maybe even 5 years in, right? There's so many, and this is, I think, people who are not in business who are listening to this, especially if you're in people and culture organizations, you might not realize this because we've talked about this before. Often cases, people in culture organizations are kept at arm's length from finance. So they're not even sure, one, if the jobs that they're hiring for will be around tomorrow. Two, if the redundancies that they're made to make are relevant to the bottom line.
Or the right ones.
Or the right ones. Yeah,
they're
exactly.
just being
told.
told.
No, we let go of our revenue ops team, we let go of sales. How are we going to sell anything? And so there's this kind of like isolation aspect of it. But yeah, I think that there's this identity that people are unaware of, which is that we have a lot of companies in the economy here in North America, definitely in Canada, a lot of companies that are unprofitable, or very far from being profitable. Like I love calling out this example, right? But Uber, look at Uber.
I know. It's crazy.
Pervasive
it's
product
crazy.
Cannibalizes the incumbents when it comes in.
Yeah.
Are the incumbents? Yeah, incumbent versus entrant.
Yeah.
So cannibalizes like taxis, kills them all.
Yeah.
And then has like an arguably shittier product because you never know how much it's going to cost.
Yeah.
And everyone's a slave to work for them. But it's the new way of doing it.
But it creates a false sense of confidence if you're an entrepreneur and you're embarking on a startup. You look at stories like that and it gives you a false sense of confidence. Well, if Uber can do it, and they're not even making
money. But they
money.
haven't done it. They haven't done it.
Well, they forget that
they've done it, but they haven't done it
too.
Yeah. Exactly.
That
the failure rate.
It's just like, I'm going to be, it's you need that confidence to a certain extent to help propel you and motivate you. Like, why would you be doing it? You're not doing it to fail. Yeah. You're doing it to succeed, but nobody buy a lottery ticket, right?
Yeah.
And having the confidence of, this is a 99.9999% chance I'm not going to win, but you're buying it like there's a 50-50 chance.
Exactly.
So there's a certain level of insanity to the endeavor in the first place.
Yeah, it's true.
So for you, for Sachili, at what point do you kind of realize, okay, well, there's I can have the confidence to orient my destiny, right? And not feel that FOMO for the market that I'm not going to race towards. And then align your kind of success trajectory with that?
I don't know what the success trajectory of Sachili is, to be
Okay.
completely honest, because everything I'm uncovering, which is why I started Go CPG. I'm not comfortable investing any more money in Sachili. It's going to be organic growth.
Sure.
And to me, I had to check my ego to get there. I can tell you that. Like, you have a brand, it's on a shelf. Well, we're not going to be going into retail anymore. We're actually pulling out of retail because it's not, it's a cash drain for us, to the process it takes to get it on shelf.
Let's talk about that process, because I think it might be cool to like just spell out the CPG story
Yeah, sure.
for people that are like
Considering it or
Yeah.
thinking to embark on it.
Totally.
Yeah. So in terms of all the different steps and what it takes
Yeah.
to get there. Yeah. So you start with a product. So I decide I'm going to make a really cool mug.
that says
let's do a
StartWell on
mug
it.
That's
There
got
you go.
StartWell on it. I say, so you prototype it, you get it to look the best it can, the branding, etc. So that's all the homework that you're doing. But
Yeah.
to actually get it on shelf, you got to factor in so many things, such as, do I need a broker to broker those introductions to buyers? The distributor. Once you get onto retail shelf, how much money do I need to spend in sales and marketing? What's the expectation? So what you're looking at, if you look at, I have a margin of 40%, 40 to 60% is a healthy margin in CPG, and we're well within that. Despite that, every time you go down the chain that I just described, everyone's getting a cut.
Right.
20%, 25%, 15%.
Margins
10%.
disappear quick.
And your margins get eroded really quickly. And you add in the unpredictability of the revenue stream, you've got a perfect storm of disaster and risk. And hence why we believe with Go CPG that maybe you don't need that broker in year one. You wait till year two. You slow down. You go knock on the doors directly. That's going to save, that's going to mitigate risk. So there's different things. Maybe you're pricing at 70% margin year one. So you got to get your COGS down, go find another ingredient supplier, go find another manufacturer.
Is it fair to say that you're sort of baking in programmatically the lessons you've learned so
Yes.
far
Yes.
into this?
Not only my lessons, because I've only been doing this 3 years. I've got an amazing, amazing team of advisory of people that have only done CPG for 20, 30 years. They're
Very cool.
actually the ones bringing in the most value. They're the ones actually saying.
This is something that came up in the conversation we had with Marianne Bulger, in a sense, as well, right? Is like her so coming from talent and right, and in venture, one of her big things was like, I think this came out of her mouth, referring to people considering hires, maybe in advance of needing them, saying, go to the talent that you'd like to hire or that are representative of the person that you want to hire, and like get to know them, because you'll be receptive to who you're looking for.
Such great advice.
And it goes with any stakeholder and any identity, right? So this is like even building. So I guess I should say this. What would you say from there about building your kind of mentor or advisory list as an entrepreneur, and how essential is that?
So my criteria was, it's critical. Like, it's critical even before you get it off the ground. If I had to do it again, I would have brought my advisory in right at the onset, and versus building it gradually.
Yeah.
And the advice I give this advice all the time, which is, find an entrepreneur that's 2 to 3 years ahead of where you think you want to be.
Yeah.
In 2 to 3 years. Go find that entrepreneur, whoever that person is. I found Susie York, Love Good Fats. She's a famous, she's got a famous brand. Find somebody that's 2 to 3 years ahead. That's where LinkedIn comes in.
Yeah.
And go out there, put yourself out there. It's going to get you uncomfortable. Put yourself out there. And I can guarantee that somebody will eventually offer to support you and be a mentor.
There's no formal apprenticeship for entrepreneurship, so
Yeah.
you have to seek it out yourself.
You have to seek it out yourself.
You did it
Yeah.
for yourself.
I did it for myself. And then I also went back to my CEOs. Like, it's not fun, like asking for help as an entrepreneur, constantly knocking on doors. Do you know anybody? It's really pushed me out of my comfort zone.
There's also this weird thing. Hey, I don't know what you think of this. Now, I don't come from an organized business employee mindset, right? I've only been employed a couple times in my life for short periods of time. Otherwise, I've been self-employed, right?
Yeah.
And
Which
I've
is so
always
beautiful, which is so awesome.
it's beautiful, but it's also kind of interesting because as you grow a company, it doesn't. There's things that you don't know, right?
Yeah, sure,
Um,
sure.
But suffice it to say, the the like talent pool that you
Yeah.
can tap into
Mm-hmm.
and find to get direction
Mm-hmm.
and orient yourself
Mm-hmm.
is difficult for entrepreneurs, I think, to spend time on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when
Mhm.
time is like feels like a
Time
kind
is
of
your most valuable resource. I
yeah.
get it. I get it. Yeah.
So I think part of sourcing these people is
Yeah.
yes, it's an everyday thing. You always want to be looking for people that you can learn from.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's an integral part of the initial planning and strategy stages of launching a venture. Like even
Yeah.
before you launch it, you
100%.
want to set these people up, right? And
Yeah.
like
100%.
pick their brains.
Have it as a part of your plan, and then you'll be better prepared to
Mhm.
actually put the time and effort into it. There's so much we do as entrepreneurs that's firefighting and reaction. So the more you can anticipate in advance, the better you'll be able to execute.
You know, I had
So-
this chat also yesterday with someone where I was saying, "Wow, you'd be great on boards.
Yeah.
You'd be a great official advisor to a company on boards."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Well, how do I do that?" I'm like, "Well, there's a recruiter that I know that
Yeah.
like does this as a job."
Yeah.
But then I thought about that afterwards, and I'm like, or I'm thinking about it now, and I'm like, well, it's kind of weird, right? That you have to get a recruiter to find you people to be on your board. Really, the leaders should go out and get these mentors should be on like corporate
The
boards.
board should find other board
Yeah.
members, or is that a conflict of interest thing?
No, they know. You should be. You should be. Your job as a
I
board
don't
member.
even have a board. I should have a board.
Start one now.
Yeah.
Let's do it. We'll
Audience,
go recruit.
if you're listening, watching, and you think you can help me
Who would you want on your board?
on my board,
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, I don't know about specific names, but I definitely know the identities because I like what you said about like project where you want your company to be
Yeah.
3-5 years out, whatever
Yeah.
the timeline is.
Yeah.
That's the person.
And I am having conversations with a bunch of people about this. So for me, it would be, established but dynamic people that came from an entrepreneurial background in hospitality and have built brands ideally
Smart. Yeah.
in
That
hospitality.
makes sense.
That's a big one. But what's interesting is you scratch, especially here in North America, you scratch the surface, and there aren't many people from the indie hospitality side of things,
Mm-hmm.
hotels I'm thinking about, not
Mhm.
restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
that have scaled to multi-location and created sustainable businesses with original brands, which is a weird thing. Like Marriott eats the industry.
They do.
There's Marriott, there's Hilton, or whatever.
Yeah,
There's
same thing.
maybe
Yeah.
3 brands.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a weird thing. And again, I hate being the like stone thrower,
No, you don't.
like David all the time, every day.
You love it.
But every industry you look at, and it's like someone stepping on you, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I agree with you that we're in a time, you were mentioning this, a time of the potentiality of disruption is very high because I think no matter how big the moat is, at a certain point, people might not need to cross it and they're getting fed up. If the market gets fed up of the
Yeah.
monopolies,
Yeah.
then there's opportunity for disruptors to own that market.
I'm gonna build my own castle.
There you go.
Fuck trying to get into this one.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah.
So you did it the first time
Mm-hmm.
with Sachili,
Mhm.
but for Go CPG, my goodness. I
Yeah.
can
It's
say
a tongue
CPG
twister.
all day long.
It's a tongue. People actually call it ChatGPT. I had some people say, "Oh, Sachi, ChatGPT." No, Go CPG.
Sachi
It sounds similar. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a tongue twister.
Have you established one, or are you keeping an eye out for certain folks for
Yeah.
Go CPG?
Yeah, Go CPG. There's a bunch of strategic roles. Like we're gonna need I'm already proactively in the next 6 months. We're gonna need a strong product manager to sort of bring that discipline. So because of my tech network, I've already got I'm not afraid to network, and so I've already got people literally on the
You've
sidelines.
got your
Nice.
That are on the
FBI
side.
most wanted
Yeah.
list with the strings of yarn.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. But doesn't mean they're going to be available. I do have the benefit of the market being what it is right now. So people are a little bit more open to
Hmm.
startup and uncertainty because they're in it anyways. So,
That's cool.
yeah.
It's interesting. I keep thinking about this too. The talent pool through that's available through redundancies, right? Like, obviously, a lot of people who are like looking for gigs, they're stressed because they're looking for gigs. But there's some great people out there just here in Toronto that have been made redundant in the last few years.
If you need to hire high potential, high performing talent, you've got your picks. It's a short period though, because remember, even in a down market, top talent will always be employable.
Exactly. And now we're in a hybridized global, like the
Where
global.
you can actually hire anywhere in the world.
So
yeah.
people are poaching Canadians.
Yeah.
It's definitely
Because
happening.
it's cheaper. Right? Cheaper.
Yeah.
We hear that all the time. It's cheaper.
I'm getting calls now. They're calling to find out, like, how do we hire people in Toronto? Because
Right.
now Toronto is a cheap, like,
Yeah,
a
it is.
cheaper,
Yeah.
especially on the developer side. You know, my background's tech as well. So it's sort of like, well, how do we're struggling to find, we've done a lot of interviews,
Mm-hmm.
but, we're not seeing it seems as though like someone handed folks in the US this message, particularly SF, and they said like, go hire people in
Yeah.
Toronto,
Yeah,
hire
I've been
devs
hearing
in
that
Toronto and
too. Yeah.
Vancouver and
Yeah, yeah.
Montreal kind of thing,
Yeah.
Calgary and Edmonton. And then they come back, they struggle, and then they have the conversation like, am I crazy? Right? Was this the wrong move for us? And I don't think it is, but
to commit to hiring here?
yeah, and their assumption is that there's so much to be saved. Like there's so much money to be saved because the talent's just cheaper up in Canada because of the dollar cost and all that fun stuff. So set up an entity, and now you offset the problem of finding talent locally, and you're still on similar time zones
Yeah.
and cultural
Yeah,
nuances
nuances,
are
are
understood. So
Totally.
and it's just not being figured. Like the wrong memo was sent out, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
Americans have calculated. American companies hiring locally have undercalculated the effect of the kind of current economic
Mm-hmm.
plight people are in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because it's like, we've heard this in past episodes from people as well in talent acquisition, is that like, Americans, yes, will pay more, right? And still want to pay more for Canadian talent, but pay less than American hires if they can. But there's also in the last couple of years in Canada, I think, this weird apathy that's crept into the workforce across the board, where now people have been maybe for the first time in their lives working remote for like 3 years or 4 years. And they're kind of saying, well, if I'm working remote for a local company, or maybe they've done a couple gigs for even foreign companies at this point, they're like, why am I still here?
Yeah.
And then they kind of might have a little bit of a sore kind of feeling about an American company offering them a little less to stay where they are, when they're really saying, I want to go out to SF, or can I go surfing and like live in California?
Yeah.
So I think the efforts of people landing,
Yeah.
on the ground here to recruit have to involve two things. They either have to involve a contextual approach to hiring, which means understanding the local
Mm-hmm.
population
Mm-hmm.
before they understand the talent pool.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then a second thing, if they're a global multinational corporation, and I think everyone's got to be thinking this way anyway,
Mm-hmm.
is looking at what their network globally can do to support the work lifestyle of their staff globally.
Mhm.
And I've definitely talked to a few people about this. Like I was talking to Vitaly a little bit about this, right, at StackIt, that like as they grow globally, they're not necessarily planning on opening up like offices as a center to get people to those spaces.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to hire the best talent where they can find them,
Yeah.
such that talent's happy where they are. And if they want to move to a different place, they'll help them,
Yeah.
because ultimately it's
It's,
about the best people in the best place for that person, for that job.
Yeah, it's a brilliant strategy.
Yeah.
It could be a point of differentiation, right? In the talent wars that we call them.
Yeah, I mean, like
It's a great approach.
especially if like, I don't know, again,
love it.
we're taking this step further, and I think it's it spills over into this like entrepreneur
Yeah.
mindset and
Yeah.
and work week as well, is that like if you can do what you're doing to generate, well, it's not all about revenue generation, but if you can do your job anywhere, and at the same time live your life, they shouldn't be at odds with each other. You know, we're seeing a lot of this, right? Like people just like leaving left, right, and center. How many people left Toronto in the last year? Do you guys know?
I don't know the stat, but it's
Just short of 200,000 people in the last 12 months.
And where do they go? Do we know? Is it south of the
Hamilton.
border? Is it? Oh, they went to Hamilton.
Yeah, so there's, I would call it tertiary cities across Canada.
Yeah.
Calgary has been,
Calgary's booming.
they're the winner for adopting people from the rest of the country right now. They've been doing a big push. They're advertising a lot, and they're really trying to say, hey, like, we're
cheaper, better cost of living, strong economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are moving because they can get a bigger house, they can get some land.
Yeah.
They might like skiing, and hey, where else? It's great to go skiing. And it's really interesting because Calgary has a lot of like it's always been a interesting. Let's say this: it's got lifestyle values. It's always had them because it was positioning to the mountains, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's got its disadvantages that are culturally there, and that maybe will never change. Like I don't know if that downtown's ever gonna be like fun.
Yeah.
Ever. It won't. It's not there. I'll just say it. It's not going to be fun.
Except for the summer. It's
There's
like
a stampede.
60, 90 days in the summer, the stampede, the front end and the back end of the stampede. I think it's a little bit more lively. But yeah, the other 9 months, not sure.
But what's interesting in this, I think, in this case study, especially for employers who might be listening, is if you look at the willingness for people to relocate from the big smoke that Toronto is to a tertiary city for ostensibly better lifestyle that's not predicated on the urban experience. Urban experience becomes simply access to goods and services to these people. They're saying, okay, I don't care that the downtown sucks and that there's like, it's a little bit sketchy at night. Maybe we'll go to 17th or we'll go to a different neighborhood for food and bev. But the mountains are there. My kids will be able to breathe, this, that, and the other thing that
it's a trade-off. They're figuring out the trade-off.
So this is very interesting also because I think the idea of cross-Canada migration is one that Canadians haven't entertained. Like it's really interesting. I was talking to a guy yesterday who's moving to Abu Dhabi, okay? And he just sold his car. The house closed last night, supposedly, like after I talked to him, his house was going to close. And he's already got a house with a pool and everything sorted over in Abu Dhabi. And he's going to join one of the sovereign wealth funds.
Yeah.
And this was a move he had never anticipated until very recently.
Yeah.
Because of the state of things with private equity in Canada right now.
Yeah. Do you guys think that mindset shift, this is my theory, that do you think that knee deep in COVID, we all got a perspective on what's important in life?
I think a lot of people did.
Short, and so now all of a sudden, things that we would not consider pre-COVID, all of a sudden, you know what? Why the hell not?
I think so.
Woke us up.
Woke us up. That's a great point. Yeah,
woke
that's a great way to
people
look
up.
at it.
It's
If
just
people
like,
woke up.
Why am I so frustrated right now?
Yeah.
Why am I unhappy? I used to like this job.
Yeah.
But then the sheen,
Yeah.
the novelty of the Dijon mustard Google lunch buffet wore off. You don't
You should
have
do a
access.
count. How many times did that word come up?
Yeah,
on
that's the
the
magic word of the day.
Yeah, magic word of the day.
You take that away, right? You're at home in your pajamas writing emails.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what kind of emails am I writing? What kind of Slack messages am I writing?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of everything that I'm doing? Everybody sat back and said, okay, I want to do something a little bit more meaningful. If I'm going to write emails, I want to write it for a company or that I believe in, that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Or they're just like, I want to go out and start my own thing. I think nice. The nice kind of side effect from all of this is there is a lot more
Entrepreneurship.
kind of just thinking about how do I do it. Part of it is out of necessity, which is scary and kind of sucks. But another part of it is like for the people that are trying it now, they're already getting ahead of the curb of like realistically more necessity kind of being put on people. I don't think things are going to become that much better economically.
Only in the last 5 years have Canadians been considering opportunities lying for them across the country. Canadians are very good at embedding themselves into their cities and provinces and then feeling like survey anyone on the street and ask them about Montreal, like a nuanced question about Montreal, and they'll either have never been there, maybe that's 50% of respondents, and out of the rest, they'll say, why would I go there if I can go to Europe? Or they'll say it's as expensive. And the barrier, so it's either I haven't been there, and within that, there's reasons why, or it feels so foreign to them that it's inaccessible, and the people that have been there are like, I don't know why I'm here. Like that's the
Who
other
are you
thing.
talking to? Montreal's a beloved city, is it not? Canadian city?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
if you've
Yeah.
been there, you
you
kind of
know, you
say,
know.
well, our pedestrian experience everywhere else outside of
Yeah.
Quebec is like
Yeah.
lacking in
Yeah,
Canada,
it
and we're
is.
doing nothing about it. And when we look
See,
at
what you're saying is people are just comfortable in their little immediate radius.
I think people have been.
Yeah.
I think Canadians have been generationally.
Yeah.
Because look, if you look at, I don't look at Canadians as necessarily being the people that came over, on whatever brand of Mayflower it was. Like, I'm talking about post that, right? Like the immigrants, the waves of immigration that we've had from various different
Yeah.
communities,
Yeah.
from the Caribbean, from Africa, from other continents, Asia, our people
Yeah.
in the 70s.
South Asian. Yeah.
South Asian, but by way of Africa,
Yeah.
which itself had,
Yeah.
interesting. But I think people came here, if people come to Canada for a better life from where they came from, right? And they convince themselves that they found it. Now, a lot of people, if you talk to them who came in the 60s, 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, they dealt with hardships locally. Like it was a tough environment. There was racism that was pretty rampant.
Yeah.
There was no access to credit if you weren't like born in Canada and white immediately in the up until the 90s, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
There
Took
was
a long time.
even on this racism tip, it's kind of weird, but like, I never really second guessed this when I first learned about it, and then it just stuck in my mind for years. It was up until I believe the end of the 90s or maybe early 2000s that like the Royal Canadian Yachting Club at the Toronto Islands would let in any members that were not Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah.
So the
There
Jewish
was an article on that.
so the
a
Jewish
while ago.
community had to form their own yachting club because they weren't allowed to park their boats or walk into the club, even for dinner, which is crazy. That's very recent history. So I think what I'm painting this kind of picture of, not to politicize our population or anything, but to say that if you're a new immigrant, even now today, you come here for a better life. And if you find it or convince yourself that you found it, then you entrench yourself. And then entrenchment often cases means that like in your brain, you don't want to question what you found. So you're not going to look at alternatives. And that's what a lot of people, I think, moved to Canada and formed in their heads is the sense of like, my place is my place.
Yeah.
And this is my Canada.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting now is, and I was
I
always
can
been hopeful for this myself, is to have Canadians feel like the whole country belongs to them. Now we have infrastructural problems that limit that. And some of those infrastructural problems have economic impact. But like the fact that our rail network for passenger trains is subservient to the freight network that the VIA runs on CN, and that it's a parastatal yet, so it's government owned, but it's the same price as flying. Means
true.
that it's a
That's
barrier to travel. We have
Yeah.
great barriers to travel, yet we have this huge distance. In fact, it should be like riding the TTC to go to Montreal.
Yeah.
Imagine that reality where Canadians can, if they
Yeah.
want to take that time to go somewhere, they can go there.
The access to travel is the thing.
That's limiting the
Yeah.
interest.
Yeah,
And
if
then
you
it's
look
It's not
at Europe,
fueling enough
Yeah.
interest and curiosity because the infrastructure doesn't
And
allow
a
you.
big part of this is that we've got these microeconomies across the country.
Yeah,
And
sure.
part of this has been, now I'm getting into politics and I don't know enough, but the difference between our various three strata of government, if you're going to say municipal, provincial, and federal,
Yeah.
is that the provinces have always had this weird antagony with the federal government on tithing, right? So the provinces are responsible for distributing essentially profits to be shared by the federal government to subsidize underperforming regions of the country. So Alberta, for example, has always had a chip on his shoulder saying, well, oil, hello, like we make money.
Yeah, we're supporting everybody else.
But the way that those the tithe gets distributed, especially in a heavily indexed
Yeah.
political scenario where, like, for example, this government has, I don't know, raised the debt to
Yeah.
I think over $1 trillion now. Now, I'm not pointing fingers, and COVID definitely,
Everybody else is doing that.
COVID definitely needed an economic response by the government and subsidies and stuff. So they did, let's assume they did the best they could.
Yeah.
But my point is, where we have these economic fiefdoms controlled by political entities that are the provincial governments,
Mm-hmm.
and their governments don't, as a precursor to their existence, like, have the mandate for cultural harmonization across this nation, we're always going to have problems. And especially as entrepreneurs, I'm saying it from that lens.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
There's a lot of chatter
Yeah.
because of all the reasons you just mentioned around I'm not going to do business in Canada anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, I like this.
So I'd love,
especially in the tech community, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your take?
Oh, my take is simple. We're going south of the border. Go CPG is servicing CPG brands.
Go USA.
You
We're
heard it
going to
here,
the
folks.
US, and we're already in the
Mexico?
process of finding a co-founder south of the border for that
Nice.
reason. So
Yeah.
that's going to be strategically how we straddle.
Okay, my question is, and I haven't thought of the answer. My question is, why do we have so much apprehension in Canada about launching business in the US?
Because there's I have a bunch of perspectives. I think the business 101 pundits will say, nail it in your backyard
Before you go.
south of the border. And I've heard that if I had a dime for every single time, and it's the wrong advice.
Right. You
It's
go where the money
fundamental.
is. You go
You
where the
go
money is.
where the opportunity in your
Yeah.
market is, your market and the risk management. And that, to me, I hear that all the time in Canada. It doesn't matter. It's industry agnostic.
Right.
Figure out and so I think, and then you've got sort of navigating the business side. Well, what happens to my income? What happens to my taxes? How do I navigate that? Am I filing income taxes in 3 states because we're doing business in 3
Mhm.
states? So it's a bit, it is complicated. No.
But if you guys can make it easier for people who are starting in CPG,
Yeah.
that's a brilliant thing.
Well, we can make it easier to navigate the stuff that we can control through our platform, right? Take all the fragmented data, bring it all into one platform, and then like a chat bot, what do you need today? What problem are you solving today? Boom, we give it to you. What we can do, we'll do. It doesn't mean we can solve every problem, but what it does, it reduces the spectrum of issues in firefighting. So we can control a section of those, subset of those critical decisions that are going to set the stage for the business, then I think then you have the energy to navigate some of this other stuff maybe that we can.
Yeah.
There's no major distinction between a Canadian CPG founder versus an American CPG founder.
There's no
apart from
distinction
size
other
and
than that
demographic.
fact that if I'm a CPG founder in Canada, my market size is equivalent to California.
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And that's the thing. And then despite that, we've got so much internal difficulty with negotiating between different territories and then transportation across our large country and all these expenses.
For me to send Sachili jars on a pallet to Vancouver is going to cost me more than to send it to California.
What? Distance-wise.
Mhm.
I'm not...
Well, cost-wise.
Yeah,
Cost-wise,
but distance-wise, California's... I'm not great at geography. We've talked about this. But that's further.
It is, but it is further, and it's cross-border. And it's so, the incentives are, money talks, math talks. At the end of the day, numbers don't lie. So you got to follow the numbers.
Tips or tricks or any perspective
Yeah.
for folks that are listening to this and watching this, coming from the people in culture world,
Yeah.
HR world, considering embarking on
Yeah.
entrepreneurial journeys.
Oh, I have a perspective, and I wish I learned this perspective a long time ago. If you're in people in culture, your superpower, what's your superpower? Relationship building,
Mhm.
trust building. What's a number one skill in starting up a business as an entrepreneur? So we're the underdogs of high potential entrepreneurial DNA. We literally have, we don't realize it. So if you're in people and culture, after having gone through, when I was at Sticker U, this is kind of a fun story. It may be good for the people and culture, listeners, is we had a revolving door in our sales organization. And I went to my CEO and I put my hand up and I said, we're struggling here. I think I know what to do here.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody gave it to me. Nobody said, come run sales, Sachi. I put my hand up. And, and I took a underperforming sales team. Nobody had any confidence. And I turned it into an overachieving performance sales
Wow.
team in 14 months. And it's not because I had this secret sauce. It's because I had the transferable skills
Sure.
that lend themselves well in any business development and sales role.
Yeah.
And that's what fueled my confidence to be an entrepreneur. If I can do that, then guess what? I think I got this.
Can you talk a bit about what you took from 6 CEOs? Right, because that's another piece, right? The relationship side, but you also
Yeah.
what a hard
Yeah.
person or persona to either sell to or influence. Like out of
Yeah.
anyone at an organization, they're going to be the most strict.
Mhm.
So that kind of replicates clients and prospects and whatnot. What are some of the biggest things you took away from?
So there's a couple of things I reflect back on with the 6. I mean, they're all very different. That much I can tell you. Everything from introvert to finance background, sales background, marketing background. But the one or two common things I'd say is, one, they really don't give a shit about what other people think. They've got this sort of relentless focus on their vision. And I think for me as an entrepreneur, like, and we get it, LinkedIn, like you get caught up in the, oh, geez, what if this person or that person? And so I think that relentless focus and that not giving a shit and just staying in that lane and not losing sight of where they want to go is probably my biggest thing that it doesn't come to me naturally.
Mm.
That doesn't come to me naturally. And that's the one thing. Like, I remember sitting in a boardroom meeting and somebody said to the CEO that, oh, our competitors are doing this and they're doing that. And he said, okay, keep a pulse on it, but let's stay in our lane. Don't lose perspective. Don't deviate too much. So I'd say those are the two things. And it's kind of natural, it's common sense, but if they didn't, these 6 CEOs, and I can say a couple of the CEOs did not actually believe in culture and people being a strategic partner in their business, I had to convince them. I had to earn my stripes.
Right.
But I'd say CEOs, and this is statistic, I always say this, when I started in the industry, CEOs talked about 2 things: sales, margin, profit.
Right.
Today, those same CEOs are talking about people, culture, leadership, engagement. Why is that? Because the data is there to show that the companies that actually are able to succeed have the people culture formula right.
Yeah, and everything's so up in the air right now in terms of pipeline isn't like there's fractures and cracks in pipeline. There's also, I think we've talked about this on the podcast a little bit, which is a very interesting thing, which is I think up until the last decade, no one really factored employee churn into their danger pile of flags.
Totally.
And especially with the pandemic and in software, it's been very interesting because there's 2 trends. And that's not just software, but we've got this employee trust is at an all-time low in both business survival and the commitment to the company has to them.
Yep.
And then on the other side, it's companies have been treating employees for so long as not aligned with the true business goals and data that then everything feels sudden. Everyone feels like the rug got pulled out from them when they realized there was no gas in the tank for the last 6 years, or 4 years.
Oh God, that's scary.
What's interesting?
You put it that way.
Yeah, but
it's true. It's true.
So
Yeah.
Anyway, I like those 2 points. I think those are really quite poignant.
Yeah. It's my perspective. I mean, I'm sure there's others.
So don't give a shit. The employee, the CEO is not giving a shit.
Yeah,
and
just don't give a shit about other people. Like,
Yeah.
and whether they're going to agree, not agree. Could be around the boardroom table. It could
Yeah.
be, your industry. And relentless in your vision and where you want to go.
I love it. We talked about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's some gems in this conversation for our
I hope
audience.
So. I hope so.
And it's so heartening to hear this story, right? Of like coming from, this is the second interview that we've done recently with someone who's kind of gone into entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah,
Larissa
corporate,
was the other one.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. I think
Yeah.
coming from understanding people
Yeah.
gives you that full cycle of perspective on a business as a stakeholder network.
Yeah.
100%.
Awesome. Thanks
Yeah.
for joining us on the
Thank
show.
you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin.